The days were counting down towards the school event, and Marinette doesn't seem to have given up yet. She talked to Madame Bustier about allowing the class to have some fun in the pre-week. Madame Bustier was suspicious and wary at first, but after Marinette explained her idea, she smiled and agreed. Chloe Bourgeois' mother was coming over from New York with a very special gift for the class. With this gift, Marinette's plan will be set successfully in motion. Adrien will text Lila to come over for the event while Lila will text Adrien something else from her end. Madame Bustier warned Marinette not to mess with Lila again because she had received an unpleasant email complaint from Lila's mother. Marinette wasn't bothered by the warning as she agreed to it easily. Adrien and Lila were in the locker room together, alone. He, digging through his locker to switch textbooks, and her, humming quietly as she waited. "You have a lovely voice," Adrien said. Lila looked up to see him smiling sweetly at her. "I didn't think you heard me," she exclaimed. "I thought I was being so quiet." Adrien laughed as he dropped his phone inside his locker and held out his hand for Lila to hand him hers. The two smartphones were switched off and lying side by side, their screens as black as jets. "I still think it's weird that they asked us to leave our phone behind," Lila announced. "Isn't that tyrannical for a school to demand?" "I think it's Marinette's doing," Adrien said, closing the locker door and locking it securely. "She never did like everyone looking at their phones when there's some sort of performance going on." Adrien turned around. Lila was sitting on the bench, gazing up at him. Adrien sat down beside her and, as they both leaned forward, pressed his forehead against hers. "Whatever happens this upcoming week, don't come. Even if it's important," Adrien whispered. "I know," Lila whispered back. "But what if something happens?" "Let's not think of the worst," Adrien said. "Hawk Moth hasn't been akumatizing anyone lately." "Wishing is good and all," Lila said. "But I can't just hang on to the hope that nothing bad will happen." "Of course not," Adrien chuckled. "I can't expect you to be blindly faithful." "If something does happen," Lila said. "If it ends up getting me into trouble." "I'll deal with it," Adrien said smoothly. "Marinette and her friends will be getting their final warning to stay out of our business." "You need to spend more time with them," Lila said, and Adrien frowned. "I'm grateful that you're devoting all your attention to us, but they were your friends first and they miss you. Maybe Marinette wouldn't be so belligerent if she has you to herself every once in a while." "I'm still here," Lila said, placing her hands on either sides of Adrien's face, and he melted, his grimace softening into a sigh. "I'm in front of you, breathing, present. And if you don't calm down, Kagami is going to take that as a personal offense and feel obligated to alight some unholy justice. Do you want to see Kagami in jail over Marinette?" Adrien breathed a soft laugh. "No," he admitted. "But that would be funny to see." "It would be," Lila giggled. "Until we have to bail her out." Lila's expression became stern. "But I'm being serious, okay? Don't lose it. Go back to acting normal, some variation of normal, before we land us in deeper shit than what we're already in. Nino's already getting really suspicious. I don't want this to spread to the teachers too." "Okay." Adrien nodded, placing his hands on either sides of Lila's. "I can be good," he said. "You better," Lila said. Holding hands, the two of them left the locker room together. The doors swung once, twice, thrice behind them before it finally clicked shut. 2 more beats passed before Alya and Nino emerged from behind the corner they were hiding in. "Gross," Alya complained. "I think it was sweet," Nino said. "No, it's not," Alya said, walking over to Adrien's locker and fishing out a curved silver pick from her pocket. She inserted the pick into Adrien's locker lock, carefully wriggling the tool around until it successfully opened the first pin. "It's weird how attached they are to each other. Why do they keep holding hands?" "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Nino asked, watching anxiously as Alya cracked open the second pin to a resounding click. "It's the only way we can enact Marinette's plan," Alya said. "Look, Nino, do you want your best friend back or not?" I do," Nino said. Then we have to do this, Alya said. It's the only way to get Adrian back to normal. Yes! Alya cheered as she opened Adrian's locker, making a reach for the smartphones innocently lying on the main shelf. She picked up Adrian's phone and long pressed the start button impatiently, watching as the screen powered up with the pace of a snail. Hey, what are you guys doing? An innocuous voice asked behind them. Alya and Nino whipped around, Alya moving her neck so quickly, her hair smacked into Adrian's locker door, inciting a sound like sand thrown over sheet metal. Luca, Nino cried first. He quickly stood in front of him, trying to hide Alya from view, but Luca simply used his taller height to peer over Nino's shoulder. Hey, Luca swiveled past Nino with the fluency of a snake and plucked Adrian's phone out of Alya's hand so quickly, Alya's hand clutched around nothing, a second too late. Luca took Lila's phone out of the locker as well and pocketed both phones. Lila was right, he said. You're all about as conspicuous as bricks. Do better, Luca hissed, slamming the locker door shut and walking away. Luca walked up to Adrian and Lila, the two of them sitting on the stairs, waiting. You're right, Lila, Luca said, handing them their phones. They were waiting right behind you. I thought, Lila said, inspecting her phone and blowing away a non-existent hair. Adrian stood up. Now, we wait for Kagami, he said. Damn it, Alya screamed. She punched the locker door and grunted in pain, clutching at her throbbing knuckles. How did they know? Nino asked, dismayed. He had never been on the receiving end of Luca's icy glare, and the experience thoroughly chilled him. Luca, that's how. Alya hissed, glaring after the door that Luca had exited. Since when was he on their side? Why would he? Alya's eyes grew wide at the same time Nino's did. Jalika, Nino cried. What should we do? Yes, a new voice said, making both of them jump. What should you do? Alya and Nino turned to notice a girl in a neat uniform and a sharp bob they've never seen before, filming them from the other side of the benches with her phone. I must say, the girl said. This footage is wonderful. I couldn't have asked for a more explicit confession of your guilt. The girl flipped her phone around, showing Alya and Nino their past selves breaking into Adrian's locker. Give me that phone, Alya demanded, leaping for her, but the girl easily moved away. Alya tripped and landed heavily on one wrist. Nino leaped up on the benches, intending to jump down on the girl, but he froze. One glare from her dragon-like eyes placed the fear of God into him. Who are you? Alya demanded. Someone you don't want as your enemy, the girl said, brandishing her phone. Just as you don't want this video emailed to the headmaster and your homeroom teacher and the police. Now, if you want to stay in school, tell me what Marinette is planning. Alya spluttered in rage, looking around as if some nebulous factor could emerge and save them from the situation. Nino only looked defeated. Kagami walked out of the locker room, Alya and Nino scuttling out behind her. They sent her furious and guarded looks, but Kagami doesn't bother turning around. She walked up to her friends. Luca looked to her as she approached. Marinette has a plan set for Lila during the upcoming school event, Kagami explained. Chloe's mother is coming from the States, and she's bringing over a surprise for the class. Marinette plans to trap Lila before public crosshairs and make everyone think Lila is going to destroy the surprise. The outrage would be so great, Lila would get expelled without a second thought. Marinette's smart, Luca said. That might have worked. No, it wouldn't, Adrian said with a frown. Lila's not even going to the school event. How would she get trapped? They were going after your phones, Luca said. Maybe they plan to use fake messages to lure you there, he said to Lila. Max is good with computers, right? Lila asked. Adrian nodded, then realized. If Max has access to our phone, we'd lose all our data and information to Marinette's gang. There's no software Max can't hack. That's insidious, Kagami said. And even more evidence of their crimes. I should have gotten Alya and Nino to confess that on video too. Then, they'd really be in trouble. Well, whatever, Luca said. We foiled their plans. They can't use this old trick. He frowned. Unless Marinette comes up with something better. Knowing that girl, she already has a plan B, C, and D. He groaned. It's never ending. She doesn't give up. We'll be fending her off forever. Not if we don't strike first, Lila said. We gave her plenty of warnings, fended her off enough. If she's still not getting the hint, then it's only her own fault. You mean? Adrian said. Are you saying? Kagami said. Lila smiled angelically. We're going on the offense, she said. Marinette's biggest advantage is the sheer amount of manpower she has. The entire class is on her side. So, Luca said. So, Lila said. We cut down her numbers. Kagami? The lady fencer cocked her head. Send me that video of Alya and Nino, please. Alya and Nino made their way up the stairs, so quickly, it looked to an outsider as if they're racing each other. Shame, horror, and nerves burned in their veins. Boyfriend and girlfriend can hardly bear to meet eyes. Inside their classroom, all of their friends were gathered, Marinette at their center. Hey guys! Marinette greeted cheerfully, then she took in the expressions on their faces. What happened? Luca, Alya said thickly, on the verge of tears. And some strange girl I had never met before. The door slammed open behind them with such force, all the classmates turned in alarm towards their newest attendee. Madame Mendeleev's face was red in rage as she approached the group. Mississippi Césaire? Mr. Lahif, she asked as Madame Bustier burst into the room after her. Your presences are required in the headmaster's office. I think you know what this is for. Please, Olga. Madame Bustier pleaded as Alya and Nino shrank before the furious teacher. Give them a chance to explain. It might not be as it seems. How could it not be? Madame Mendeleev demanded as she hauled Alya and Nino with her like disobedient puppies. The evidence is clear as day. Such behavior will not be tolerated in my school. The classroom was horror-struck in their wake as the two teachers and Alya and Nino left, the formers arguing. Marinette. Alya called back, eyes pleading. I'm so sorry. Alya and Nino never returned even as the bell rang and class started. Suspended. Marinette screamed. Alya nodded sadly and Mylene gasped. Ivan comfortingly wrapped a hand around her shoulders as the smaller girl leaned to him. How can this be? Alex protested. They must have made some mistake. We need you guys for the event. Who else is going to be our videographer? Who else is going to be our DJ? We should protest. Monsieur Damocles must allow you back for those days, at least. It's no use, Alya said mournfully. I've never seen Mendeleev so angry. I don't think we can worm our way out of this one. The entire class was gathered in Marinette's bedroom, sitting around each other on her stairs, lounge, and carpet, except for Alya and Nino. Their parents were furious over what had happened, and they were both grounded, now only present through video call. I can't believe this, Marinette seethed. I can't. I'm so sorry this happened. It's all right, girl. Alya said. It's not your fault, and it's all Luca's and that other girl's. Jalika began sobbing softly, and everyone looked to her in surprise. I'm sorry, she said. You traitor. Kim cried. How could you tell him? Wait, guys, Marinette said quickly. Let's have Jalika explain herself first. She wouldn't do this. I have no choice, Jalika said. It was when we were talking about what had happened in class at my house, remember? I remember seeing Luca's phone under his covers, but didn't think too much of it. But when I left the room and went down again, it was gone. What? Marinette exclaimed. Wait a minute, let me get this straight, Nathaniel said. You're saying that Luca recorded everything? That means he knows all of our plans. Max pushed his glasses up on his nose. We're back to square one. And he showed them all to Lila, Alex said. Why? Why would Luca do that? Rose wailed. I thought he was our friend. No, Jalika said, so softly everyone had to strain to hear. He's Lila's best friend. What? Marinette exclaimed again. Since when was that a thing? I'm not sure, Jalika said. But Adrian and Lila returned to the boat looking for a box with a bow on it. I'm not sure. And they got friendly with Luca from there. Marinette's eyes widened and her breath quickened. No one else noticed, but Marinette could feel Ticky's disappointment. If Marinette hadn't taken the box, would Lila and Luca never had become friends? Was it her fault? Adrian invited Luca to join their group and he agreed. Jalika finished. Then why didn't you tell us this before? Alia screamed and Jalika flinched. Hey, Rose cried shrilly. Don't yell at my girlfriend. Obviously, Jalika couldn't because she was in shock. Luca was a pacifist. How could anyone have seen this coming? Jalika obviously couldn't believe that Luca would stoop to that level. Rose is right, Jalika said. I didn't think my brother, my twin, would turn against us. I didn't expect that Luca would help us get rid of Lila. We just asked him to read Lila's melody. And now, it's because of him that Alia and Nino are expelled. Fucking so, Alia screamed, her video call shaking with her resignation. That bastard! Alia looked as if she was going to say a lot more, but then a few hard knocks sounded from her side, and she looked up as someone entered her room. Alia, a disapproving voice said, off-screen. You know the rules. Hand me your phone. Shit, Alia muttered, then the screen went black and the call disconnected. The class watched the empty monitor somberly for a moment. Well, Ivan asked, what do we do now? I think we should continue, Kim suggested stubbornly. We already invested a lot into this plan, and we shouldn't just assume that they know everything. Fuck that, Alex said. I'm playing it safe. I don't want to be the one who gets suspended next. Maybe we should just change around a few details? Nathaniel said. How many details can we change? Kim complained. It'll just be the same plan from a different angle. Marinette, alone, was quiet while her friends squabbled around her. Luca's words rang in her ear. She's not human. Marinette had thought Luca was exaggerating or being dramatic, but when had Luca's instinct ever been wrong? Why else would Luca go over to Lila's side unless she corrupted him, somehow? The more Marinette thought about it, the more she could pick out abnormal quirk in Lila's personality. She was standoffish. She never hung out with anyone. Her isolation seemed to be purposeful. Adrian only became her friend after trying for weeks. And the moment Adrian fell, it was like a domino cascade of allies poured over Lila. Luca was gone, and now some strange girl Alia and Nino had never seen before has joined in her insidious ranks. Kim was right. Marinette can't just get rid of her old plan. It's the only dependable strategy to get rid of Lila. But Alex was right too. None of them can risk going Alia and Nino's way. They need to play it safe somehow, modify the original plan, transform it into a juggernaut Lila can't dodge. Marinette gazed at her empty laptop monitor where Alia's image once was. Marinette needed the help of a miraculous. Are you and Chat Noir dating? Luca asked. Lila frowned and raised her head from her glass of soda. What? Luca held up his phone to show Lila what he was looking at. Adrian and Kagami glanced over too, a photo of Chat Noir bridal carrying Lila over the rooftops of Paris. Oh, for fuck's sake. Lila complained. You're dating a superhero? Kagami asked. Adrian didn't say anything, expression unreadable. I'm not going to hear the end of this from Ladybug, he thought. No, Lila sighed. Chat Noir and I aren't dating. He was simply taking me home because Adrian got worried. Well, that's not what the rest of Paris thinks, Kagami noted, scrolling through a news feed on her own phone. Look at this. She held up her phone to display a headline from some gossip magazine. Chat Noir's secret girlfriend is the girl who can fight Akumas. Lila cringed, reaching out for the phone, and Kagami handed it over obediently. Yesterday morning, Chat Noir was seen hugging a student from college, Francois Dupont. Lila read out loud, squinting her eyes at the tiny script. An ad popped up and Lila swiped it away irritably without waiting for the contents to load. Sources from: our investigator placed her as Lila Rossi, a student known to defend Akumas. Who wrote this garbage? Let me see. Luca asked and received his turn with the phone. Yeah, this isn't good. Adrian suddenly stood up and they all looked at him. I just remember I have something to do it, he said. I'll be right back. Adrian walked off. Kagami leaned over Luca's shoulder to read the article with him. Yep, she agreed. That's not good. Excuse me. The receptionist of Le Miroir magazine looked up from her typing to see Chat Noir glowering at her over her desk till. Chat Noir, she exclaimed. Hello. What a surprise to see you here. Yes, hi, Chat Noir said. I'm looking for someone, can you help me? I want to know who wrote that recent article about me. The receptionist blinked. Which one? The one that insinuated a relation between me and a college student, Chat Noir said. Oh, the receptionist. Do you remember the article's name? Chat Noir frowned. The name? Why can't you just? He realized. How many articles are there about me and that student? Quite a lot, the receptionist confessed awkwardly. That topic has boosted up our readership and there are many readers interested in knowing more. Besides, we received quite a lot of photos. Chat Noir pressed his hands down on the desk. How many people are writing about this topic? Just one. Could I have their name? Chat Noir asked. I would like to speak to them personally. The door to the lobby slammed open and Chat Noir turned around to see Lila strode in, icy rage boiling in her eyes. Luke and Kagami followed behind, Luca as cool as a cucumber with his hands in his pockets and Kagami with her kendo shurnai leaned on her shoulder. Excuse me, Lila snapped, slamming her hands down on the receptionist's desk, scaring the woman. She jolted and Chat Noir raised an eyebrow. Why are there a million fucking articles about me and Chat Noir? By a million, she means 10, Luca said helpfully over Lila's shoulder before leaning back. 10, Chat Noir demanded. Who? They had an audience in the lobby, loungers and employee watching the scene, some taking out their phones to film the scene. Neither Chat Noir nor Lila noticed, too inflamed, but Kagami looked around cautiously, tilting her head until her bob masked her face as best as possible. The receptionist quickly thrusted an open magazine over the desk towards Chat Noir and Lila, pointing down at the name of an author. Bob Roth, Chat Noir demanded. Who? Lila asked. Ugh, this guy, Luca said, face twisting in disgust. He's a shameful thief of a man-child. His son sucks us too. He's infamous in Parisian high society circles, Kagami explained. He's a producer, primarily, and known for ripping artists off and exploiting their gifts. My mother always spoke negatively of him. Lila nodded, trying to keep her cool, but wondering why Bob Roth of all people was interested in blowing up gossip and writing sensational articles about meaningless gestures. From Nadia Chamak? Sure. Lila was expecting the Prime Queen episode to happen any day now. But from Bob Roth? Lila felt an undeniable urge to beat Bob Roth up. She turned sharply from the desk and headed towards the nearest door, which opened to a small storage closet. She planned to scream her frustrations out, but to Lila's surprise, as the door cracked open, a metal bat fell out and rolled to a stop at her sneaker. She stared at it in surprise, before picking it up and returning to the receptionist's desk. So, you guys just have this lying around? She asked. I have no idea what that is, the receptionist said, eyeing the baseball bat in Lila's hands rightly, fearfully. I don't know how that got there. Cool, so it's mine now, Lila said. She turned the bat over in her hands and her mind went blank for a moment. I'm about to go to jail for first-degree murder. No, you're not, Luca said, plucking the bat right out of her hand. Lila whirled around in betrayal and noticed that Luca had also confiscated Kagami's shurnai and was holding it out of her reach. How did you? Lila demanded. Magic, Luca said as Kagami glared at him. Lila, relax. Seriously, relax. I'm getting emotionally drained from listening to your melody right now. How can you expect me to stay relaxed right now? Lila demanded, then turned and forced all her anger into the sharp points of her knuckles. Her right hand formed a fist which she plummeted into the nearest wall. The receptionist shrieked. The building shook with the force of Lila's punch and plasterboard cracked around her hand. Lila took back her fist to a tearing of paint. Her knuckles were split open and bleeding, blood running down her wrist. Whoa, Kagami said. How did you? Okay, we need to get you to a hospital. Probably, Lila reluctantly admitted as Luca stepped forward and pressed bunch tissues to Lila's wounds. I think I broke my hand. Chat Noir, Luca asked, patting at the cuts. Could you help us? He looked up. Okay, Luca said, to the empty space that Chat Noir once inhabited. I guess we're going by Uber then. Kagami, could you do the honors? Sure, Kagami said. Luca guided Lila out of the door while Kagami followed. Spying a man still recording them, she stepped up to him and knocked the phone out of his hands, stabbing the heel of her sneaker down on it. The screen cracked. No recording, Kagami snarled at him before looking around. Others who were also filming her took one look at the man's destroyed phone before quickly destroying their own videos before stowing their phones away. Satisfied, Kagami nodded before leaving. After her friends left, Marinette was isolated in her private bubble of misery and looping regrets. She kept thinking that all these unfortunate events were something she should have planned for, been able to foresee and prevent, even though there was no need reminiscing over them when there was nothing Marinette could do to change the past. She switched her computer on and tackled her homework in an attempt to distract herself, but being on her computer only reminded Marinette of the hideous way Alia was removed for their earlier discussion. Futilely, Marinette tried to contact Alia away, but it seemed that her parents had successfully confiscated all of her electronics. Marinette sighed. There was no point in trying. She could only get gloomier and produce subpar work if she tried to focus her mind on her education. Marinette's mouse moved closer to her sleep button, intending to take an early night, when a new notification suddenly caught her attention. Marinette's eyes widened. What the fuck? In the kitchen, in the process of making dinner, Sabine and Tom looked up at the ceiling. Their daughter's single outraged cry faded to silence, leaving them staring at the rafters. Tom turned toward his wife. Should we? Sabine shook her head. No, Tom. No. The two of them turned back to their preparation. The articles blurred before Marinette's eyes. She was sure she never read as quickly as she did then, consuming the poisonous lines and unbelievable words, the sentences cooing about their sweet interactions, and the photo that showed them hugging. Lila carried in Chat Noir's arms, Lila standing next to Chat Noir, the two of them talking innocently on some public street. In total, there was about 10 articles. Marinette finished one and started on the other in a state of numb disbelief. Since when had this happened? Since when had her partner become such good friends with Marinette's classmates? How did Lila Rossi become so intertwined with not one, but two of the most important boys in Marinette's life? Marinette was finished up the last article, shaking her head at the romantic innuendo and speculations of a deeper private relationship, when the page suddenly shuddered and displayed an error message. She refreshed the article again, but the same error message returned. When Marinette tried to find the other articles, they were similarly deleted. What happened? But that wasn't important. The articles were probably taken down because they were another series of inappropriate sensationalism about public authority figures. What worried Marinette was that civilians had definitely seen these articles, as the photos must be circulating regardless of the deletion of the original. Neither Ladybug nor Chat Noir are supposed to get involved with civilians. Chat Noir knew this. This was one of their golden rules. So, why? Marinette groaned internally. She was going to have a long talk with Chat Noir tonight. Why, Lila? Adrian cried and he hugged Lila, her broken hand treated with utmost caution. Adrian gently traced the wrist brace that secured her bone. Why? She broke her hand, Luca said. By punching a wall. She shook the entire building, Kagami added. It was quite a punch. I'll do it again, Lila said. Of course, you will, Luca sighed. She's lucky it was only a mild sprain. That just have to stay on for a week. Lila patted Adrian, who was still worried sick, on the head. Hey, Kagami remarked, scrolling through her phone. The article is gone. She showed her friends the gravestone of the article, which only displayed an error message now. Luca read the world. The following article has been deemed a violation of Chat Noir's privacy rights and removed. I guess he must have really scared them, Kagami said. Good, Lila said. Ladybug visited Master Fu's parlor room again that night, wanting to borrow the miraculous she needed to enact her plan against Lila. The master, however, is nowhere to be seen. Unhappy, Ladybug dithered around the room, hoping Fu would show up if she dallied long enough. Ladybug. Ladybug whipped around, hope rising at the sight of Waze. Waze, thank goodness you're here, she said. I need your help, I need a miraculous. Waze frowned. There's no Akuma right now, he said, gazing out of the open windows. No, Ladybug agreed. But I'm worried. Hawkmoth hasn't been akumatizing any victims lately, and my gut tells me he's planning something big. I want an extra pair of eyes for patrol tonight, just in case they catch something me and Chat Noir misses. Waze peered suspiciously at Ladybug, and Ladybug smiled angelically back, thankful that Waze will not be able to hear her thudding heartbeat or see the sheen of sweat coating her forehead behind her bangs. This was the first time Ladybug had lied to Waze, lied to a branch of the guardianship. This was the first time she had used a miraculous so selfishly. But was this selfish? Ladybug was concerned for the health and safety of her friends and classmates, and no matter what Tiki said, they had lectured Marinette's ears off already. She simply couldn't understand the direness of the situation. Finally, Waze sighed. Push the dragon's eye on the gramophone, he instructed. The code is 386. When you finish your plan, bring the miraculous back. I won't tell Fu. With that, Waze left the room, leaving Ladybug gaping at his exit. How had he known? Ladybug made sure to be so careful. Ladybug shook her head. However he had was not important. Ladybug had to take advantage of this window of opportunity before it closed. Alia fumed in her bedroom, surrounded by nothing but books, paper, and pens. Taking away her laptop, tablet, and smartphone was not only a punishment that prevented her from talking to her friends, but stopped her from doing her homework or working on her journalism. How was Alia supposed to write new updates for the Lady blog without her monitor? Alia sat on her bed, devising way to stealing back her phone when a knock sounded at her window. Confused and curious, she pushed it open to see. Ladybug? Alia asked, fully yanking the curtains open to allow the superheroine entrance. What's the occasion? There's no Akuma. Ladybug climbed into Alia's bedroom and yanked the curtains back shut, securely closing the window before turning to her best friend and most loyal follower. Alia, she said, thank you so much for all your dedication, devotion, and loyalty. You have truly been my greatest fan since my very first day. There's no one who deserves to know more than you. Ladybug de-transformed, the bright pink glow washing down her body to reveal, behind Ladybug's scarlet glamour Marinette in plain pink jeans and a gray blazer. Marinette smiled and Alia gasped, unable to believe that her larger-than-life hero and her sensitive best friend were the same person, even after witnessing the evidence with her own eyes. I know that this is a huge shock, Marinette said, taking something from her purse, something metallic with a flash of orange. Tiki, freshly emerged, hovered over the two girls, glowering. And I wish I could give you more time to process everything, but, well, I'm afraid we're a little short on time. I need your help. Marinette held the fox pendant before Alia, the necklace swaying like a hypnotist's tool. Alia Césaire, she said. Here is the miraculous of the fox, which will grant the power of illusion. You will use this miraculous for the greater good, helping me get rid of Lila Rossi. Can I trust you? Alia finally snapped out of her stupor. Her greatest wishes were happening all at once, and she was wasting it gaping like a fool. She took the miraculous. Of course, lady. Marinette, she said, as an orange kwame emerged from the pendant as she touched skin with the jewelry. Always. Alia fastened the pendant around her neck. So, Alia asked, what's the new plan? Marinette smiled. Chatmore sat on the rooftop of a lone business building, looking at the stars in the sky, waiting. Footsteps alighted behind him and Chat Noir rose up with a smile and a smile that faded and a greeting that dried as he took in Ladybug's expression. She approached him with an unhappy downward curl to her lips and a dip between her eyebrows. Chat, she said. My lady, Chat Noir returned. She put her hands on her hips. I saw 10 news articles today, she said. 10, all writing about a romantic relationship between you and Lila Rossi. Care to explain what that's about? Chat Noir rubbed the back of his head. It's nothing, he said. Just overinflated nonsense. Adrien Agresti asked me to look for her because he was worried, and the tabloids happened to snap pictures and make up stories about us. Really? Ladybug said, raising an eyebrow. She sighed. All right, fair enough. Just be careful next time, okay? You know we're not meant to get familiar with civilians. I know, Chat Noir said. And Lila Rossi is a unique case, Ladybug continued. She's a big enough target already. We don't need to give Hawk Moth more reason to go after her. Ladybug clicked her teeth irritably. That girl is such a bother. Chat Noir's head snapped up. Hey, he said. She's not doing it on purpose. Ladybug uttered a humorless laugh. I think she is, she said. What kind of lunatic goes after Akumas, attacking them? She was protecting herself, Chat Noir said cagily. Ladybug narrowed her eyes at his tone. Not really. I think it's plain to see that she takes pleasure from causing pain and enacting violence. What a freak. Watch your tone, Chat Noir said. She's a victim. We're meant to protect her. We've been protecting people from her, Ladybug said. She caused accumatizations, remember? She doesn't know about that, Chat Noir said. She's new to Paris. How is she supposed to know about Hawk Moth? Oh, so that makes it okay for her to go around and insult people? Ladybug asked. No, Chat Noir said. But it doesn't make it right for you to treat her like some criminal. She's fucking suspicious, Ladybug said. Remember what she did to Sabrina's akumatized object? How she burned it and my cure never brought it back. What's up with that? She's dangerous. I don't think she's our friend. She did us a favor, Chat Noir said. She helped us defeat the Akuma. Helped herself. You're just angry that she's doing your job for you. That you can't swing in this time and play the hero. Ladybug took a step back. What? She asked, confounded. What are you talking about? Chat Noir glared at her and didn't speak. Ladybug spluttered. I'm done with this conversation, she said. Clearly, you're not in your right mind, and I don't think you're as detached from Lila Rossi as you're pretending. I don't know what's going on, but it's your responsibility to sort your own shit out. Ladybug threw her yo-yo and watched as the disc wrapped its string around a nearby church spire. Don't think that I'll swing in and start playing the hero when you get caught in another of Hawk Moth's dumbass traps because you're too busy making goo-goo eyes at the enemy, she said, and leapt away. Chat Noir watched her go, anger and rage boiling in his body. You need to calm down, the voice in this head said. Go see Lila. Chat Noir blinked. But. Just go. Do you want to be akumatized? Chat Noir sighed and relented. He's go see Lila, stay for an hour or so, just until he stopped feeling murderous. Lila spent an ample amount of time designing ideas for her own kwame, suit, and weapon. How lucky was this? Instead of stuffing herself into a cookie-cutter hole of a preset system where she had to play her abilities, skills, and preferences to someone else's tune, she's free to do as she wished. She studied Amber's books and notes intensively to make sure she could set a proper foundation for her Kwame. Although she was going to be using Pollen's life force as a base, she wanted her Kwame to be cool and cute and maintain their individualism. Lila's abilities will be based on her anger, of course, her most potent weapon, her inner fire, as Amber called it. Her Kwame would be Apollo, god of the sun, the epitome of flame and fury. Her abilities will be fire-based, of course, showy and disastrous, and her weapons would be a dual system based on the state of the battle she'll be in. At its default, casual mode, her lucky baseball bat, this innocent sporting equipment which continually appeared before her like an omen, will be ordinary and smooth-surfaced. But in emergencies, Lila would be able to manifest a spiked club with painful consequences. Her special power, Ignite, would activate when she hit objects with her weapons. Apollo would like cotton candy and other sweets, Lila decided, and she would reward him splendidly after every battle. There. Lila stretched in self-satisfaction. Done. She looked over the notes and illustrations. The only thing to do now is to get Amber to review it. Fuck. Lila should have asked Amber for her contact details. A knock sounded behind her and Lila twisted around in her chair to see Chat Noir waving outside her window. She got up and heaved the pane open. Chat Noir, good evening, she said. But it's a bit late for a visit, isn't it? I happened to be in the area on patrol, Chat Noir said. I wanted to check up on how you're doing. Fine, Lila said, shrugging. Thinking and doing stuff that aren't particularly important. Do you want to come in? No, I shouldn't overstay my welcome, Chat Noir said. I just want to talk for a bit. So, Lila said, taking a seat on the windowsill. Talk. Lila told Chat Noir about her evolving view on Paris now that she had lived here for a couple of weeks and Chat Noir suggested landmarks she could visit. They talked about the places they've seen, the things they had done, and how they wished they could spend their weekends rather than wasting it on homework and superhero duties. It felt like 15 minutes, yet the time was near midnight by the time Chat Noir finally left. Mrs. Rossi hummed as she closed the front door behind her, dropping her handbag, rolling her shoulders, glad to finally be home. As she made her way to her bedroom, her phone rang, and Mrs. Rossi sniffed as she fished it out of her tight ankle pant pocket. Pronto? Georgia Rossi speaking. To an outsider it may sound as if there was absolute silence echoing from the other end, but Mrs. Rossi nodded as if an entire encyclopedia of information was being fed into her ear. She nodded and hummed and finally spoke. Understood. She'll be there, Mrs. Rossi said. Thank you, trickster. She ended the call. The next morning, Natalie made her way to Gabriel's office, expecting the man to be eye-bagged but determined, having whittled away another evening sleepless, concocting plans after plans to combat Lila Rossi. To Natalie's pleasant surprise, however, Gabriel was not alone. Some of his senior designers were scattered around his office, and they were working on the looks for Gabriel's next ready-to-wear collection. Good morning, sir, Natalie said. Morning, Natalie, Gabriel said, not removing his eyes from his standing desk monitor. Natalie could see the sketches he's making reflected in his spectacle lenses. I'm a little busy at the moment. As you can see, we're making some last-minute changes to the upcoming show. That's wonderful. Natalie stepped closer and felt her heart skip a beat in shock at the black leather, red silk, silver hardware, and gold jewelry displayed in the updated designs. Ladybug core and Chat Noir-esque. Sir? Do you recall Audrey Bourgeois? Gabriel asked. From Style Queen magazine? You've met her quite a few times. Yes, the editor-in-chief, I remember her, Natalie said, helplessly unable to remove her gaze from the superhero-themed clothing. Design-wise, they were quite chic and Natalie knew they would be popular with Parisians, as obsessed with their heroes as ever. Personally-wise, why? She'll be coming to Paris to celebrate the collection's unveiling, Gabriel said. Apparently, her daughter suggested the idea of a ladybug and chat noir-themed show, and Audrey was quite enamored with the idea. She'll be expecting couples' outfits and statement looks to judge. When was this? Natalie asked. I've never heard anything about this. She just sent her email a week ago, Gabriel said, tooting. A demanding woman as ever, expecting us to design and produce a whole capsule in a single week. And her daughter is even worse. Little Miss Chloe insisted that the finished products should be held at the safe of College Françoise Dupont of all places. Adrian's school? Natalie exclaimed. Yes. Do they even have the capacity to protect luxurious couture there? I sure hope they do, Gabriel said. Otherwise, Bourgeois Senior and Junior will only have themselves to answer to. Chloe Bourgeois is quite obsessed with superheroes, you see. I hold no doubts that she intends to use the clothes to boast to her peers and promote herself. Alas, as long as the items themselves are not damaged. Good luck, sir, Natalie said. What a busy schedule you have, catering to the meteoric demands of fashion among. Natalie scanned the senior designers, all of them engrossed in their work, sparing no attention to the CEO and his assistant, before cleaning in close to whisper, other matters. A ghost of a smile quirked the corner of Gabriel's lip. Thank you, Natalie. I'll send Adrian to school now, Natalie said, stepping away. Rest assured, sir, you can focus all your attention on your work. Natalie left the room to find Adrian drinking a mug of coffee in the kitchen, his packed satchel resting on the floor beside his stool. Morning, Natalie, Adrian greeted. Good morning, Natalie said, smiling. Ready to go? Adrian gulped down the rest of his coffee in one swallow and disposed of the mug in the sink rather carelessly. Yeah, he said, running to catch up to Natalie as she turned to leave the kitchen. He said as they crossed the mansion's lobby. You don't need to pick up Lila today. She just texted this morning. She doesn't feel well enough to go to school today. That's all right, Natalie said. No hassle. Natalie kept her tone cool and nonchalant, but internally, her pulse thundered with her relief. She was not ready to face Lila so soon after seeing the other Lila. Gabriel saw his senior designers out now that the bulk of the legwork had been done. He cleaned up their designs, conducted last-minute checks, and emailed Audrey to inform her that some of the more expensive and pedigree pieces will be staying at the Agresti mansion regardless of her daughter's demands. Gabriel does not trust his son's grubby classmates and refuses to entertain the risk of letting his show go to disaster for the whims of one capricious little girl. Audrey, famously difficult and uncooperative, must have already seen sense because she agreed to Gabriel's condition with no backtalk. Gabriel was polishing off a disgustingly servile thank you email when a call came through. His desktop communication filter only allows a selected list of personal and business acquaintances. Otherwise, Natalie would take the call. Gabriel raised an eyebrow at the incoming name and pressed accept before turning back to his horrendous email. Mrs. Rossi, he said. What a pleasure to hear from you. Good morning, Monsieur Agresti. I hope I'm not bothering you so early in the morning, Mrs. Rossi's cheerful voice said. Not at all. How may I help you? I saw that you have a fashion show next week, Mrs. Rossi said. And I know this is a long shot, but my Lila has always dreamed of being a fashion model, and I was wondering if there's a vacant position she could fill. Gabriel blinked. What luck. Now, he doesn't have to be the one asking. Gabriel detested to be the supplicant. Of course, he said. Not only would it be an honor to help a dear friend of Adrian's, Lila has fantastic features that any designer would want in their model. She could walk with Adrian. They'll be perfect together. Wonderful, Mrs. Rossi cooed. My Lila would be over the moon to hear such joyous news. Thank you very much, Monsieur Agresti. I'll let her know right away. It's my pleasure to help, Gabriel said and hung up. Who was that, Mom? Lila asked, frowning at Mrs. Rossi as she put the phone down. Lila had walked into the living room for a glass of water and managed to catch the tail end of Mrs. Rossi's conversation with Gabriel, Lila would be over the moon. Joyous news. Nothing, Mrs. Rossi said. I have to go to work now, but I'll have a wonderful surprise for you tonight, my angel. Lila blinked, warily approaching as Mrs. Rossi tossed breath mints and hairpins into her handbag, humming. Can't you just tell me now what it is? And ruin the surprise? Mrs. Rossi sang. Don't be a spoilsport. I'm off to work now. See you later. Mrs. Rossi waved behind her, jingling her keys before slamming the front door shut. Lila frowned, alone in the newly vacated apartment. That's weird, she muttered to herself. Whatever. Lila fetched her glass of water and went back to her room, sitting back at her seat. She reread her notes for Amber for what must be the millionth time and uncapped her pen to rewrite the information again. Neater and better and shorter. Lila's phone buzzed and she flipped it over to see a new text notification. Catboy, check out these new Chat Noir and Ladybug-themed clothing. Adrian sent along several pictures of red blouses with black spots, dark-washed jeans, ladybug-themed sneakers, leather boots, jackets with bells sewn into the collar. Fox Phoenix, these look amazing. What are they? Catboy, clothes for a fashion show, I think. Chloe said that her mom's involved with them. They're being kept at the school and we're not allowed to touch them, but everyone's snapping pictures. For a fashion show? Lila was concerned. The fashion show episode of season 2 should be happening at the end of the season. Why was it here so early? Neither the Collector nor Prime Queen had popped up yet. And why was the fashion show Ladybug and Chat Noir themed? Shouldn't it be for a menswear collection designed by Gabriel? An uncomfortable and cherry sensation came over Lila. Something wasn't right. Catboy, the fashion show is happening next week, so that's something to look forward to. It all fell into place at once for Lila. Next week? The same time the school event was going to be held? Everyone was taking pictures of the clothes. Of course, everyone adored them. Everyone loved Ladybug and Chat Noir. The entire school was probably looking forward to seeing the clothes worn by models in person. Kagami had said Marinette's plan centered around vandalism and Chloe's mother bringing some treasured object everyone will love and blame Lila for ruining, which will end with her expelled. But that doesn't make sense. How was Lila supposed to be caught vandalizing the clothes? She wasn't even going to be in school on that day. Although, Marinette doesn't actually need for Lila to be there, for Lila to destroy the clothes, she just needed the public to believe Lila is guilty. How much manpower and abilities does Marinette have in her disposal? The entire class is on her side, and she has access to each miraculous. Lila's mind was whirling with the possibilities. With the Fox Miraculous, an illusion of Lila could be videotaped attempting to destroy the clothes. With the Bee Miraculous, Lila could be frozen and conveniently deposited at the scene of the crime. With the Horse Miraculous, Lila could be unknowingly teleported there. Lila began shaking with rage. She needed to think up of a counter plan, with alibis and witnesses, and something that ensured her innocence. There's no way Lila would be able to get out of this scenario by just crying. After all, Lila in the show was finally exposed when Marinette managed to treat the entire class to her unknowingly confessing to her sins. An idea hit Lila. Adrian might not want Lila to come to school, but her life was hanging by a thread. What? Adrian said, lowering his phone, blinking as the clothes were wheeled out of public eye and trundled into the art room. They're storing the clothes there? We're so lucky, a girl near him gushed to her friend. I can't believe we'll get to see them every day. Adrian frowned. That wasn't safe. The chances that the clothes could get damaged or stained in a room full of volatile art equipment manned by young teenagers was astronomical. He stowed his phone, hurrying up to the workers organizing the clothes. One of them looked up at the sound of his approaching sneakers. Hi, Adrian said. But, are you storing the clothes in there? The man shrugged. That's what we're told. That's a little unsafe. Who asked you to move them here? Adrian asked. The man turned to his colleague. Who? A Chloe bourgeois, he replied. Adrian stared at the man for a second before nodding and leaving for class. Adrian waited for the lunch bell to ring and for the classroom to be mostly deserted before getting up and moving over to Chloe and Sabrina. And I want it with no mustard, Chloe was barking, jabbing at the thin paper Sabrina was holding while Sabrina shivered. You hear me? Don't make the same mistake again. No fucking mustard. Yes, Chloe, Sabrina mumbled before scuttling out of the classroom with Chloe's lunch order clutched in her hands. Chloe sighed, swinging her hair over her shoulders as she leaned back in her chair. Such a bother, she muttered. Hey, Chloe, Adrian said in a faux sweet tone. Chloe looked up. Hi, Adrian, she said, just as sweetly. The clothes for that upcoming fashion show, Adrian mused. How come your mother wants them in the art room? I know how fastidious she usually is with her wear, and now she's allowing kids with paintbrushes near them. No, Chloe rolled her eyes. Obviously not. They'll be password protected and kept in a safe place that only she'll have the key of. And there'll be cameras placed all over the hallway so none of these poor bitches can try to steal what they can't afford. Smart, huh? Adrian nodded. Not so smart. You and your mother aren't as cunning as you think, Chloe. The only person with the password would be Marinette. So Marinette was still going on with her plans. But they won't work. Lila won't be in school during Fashion Week. Marinette can't reach her here. Thanks, Chloe. I was worried for a second. Adrian turned to leave, exiting the classroom, hitching his bag further up his shoulder, not knowing that Marinette had been watching him for something and was now rising from her chair to follow him. Adrian approached the art room again to see the same two workers from this morning removing the plain wooden door for a metal security door. It was overkill, in Adrian's opinion, but it'll definitely keep people out. Hello, Adrian called. Hello, one of the men said. Welcome back, young man. What can we help you with this time? I'm just wondering what's all this, Adrian said, gesturing at the gate. We're just adding a little more security to the protection of those clothes, he answered. Impossible to move by hand and openable only by a password, it's a state-of-the-art system. And the best thing about it is that it's a one-way access. Adrian frowned. What does that mean? Observe, the man said, and shoved his coworker through the door. Felix, what the hell? The door was slammed shut, and the locked-up man began banging on it. Do you have the card on you? Felix asked, yelling through the metal. No, you dick. Let me out. Felix smiled triumphantly as Adrian. See? You need a pass card to get out. Without it, you can't escape. Felix re-entered the password and allowed his coworker out. The other man scowled at him. Asshole. Love you too, buddy. Felix closed the door. We just need to get the alarm set up and the cameras activated. It'll notify everyone should someone break in. Got any more questions? No, Adrian said. Thank you so much for answering them. Both men nodded and returned to finalizing the security door. Adrian turned to see Marinette by the stairs, watching him. He gave a fake smile and waved. Marinette waved back without smiling and continued her way down the stairs. Lila, darling, I'm home, Mrs. Rossi called. Lila emerged from her room, surprised. Mom, she said, as Mrs. Rossi cheerfully shed her coat in the living room. I didn't expect you back so soon. Well, my meeting was cut short, Mrs. Rossi said, beaming. And I just couldn't wait to tell you my surprise. What is it? Lila asked warily, expecting something as mundane as a new dress or a mother and daughter spa trip. Mrs. Rossi clapped her hands together in delight. My daughter, she announced, is going to be Gabriel Agresti's new model. What? Lila exclaimed. Mr. Agresti personally requested that you walk down the runway with Adrian at his next fashion show. Isn't that amazing? It is amazing, Lila said. But Gabriel Agresti wouldn't present this opportunity from the goodness of his heart. He clearly had some ulterior movie. However, that doesn't mean the opportunity wasn't attractive. If Lila was a model at the fashion show, all eyes would be on her. Her entire audience would be her alibi. There was no way for even Marinette to overcome that. But Mrs. Rossi prodded. Lila shook her head. But nothing, Mom, she said. You're right, this is amazing. Can I call Adrian? He'll be so happy to know. Of course, Mrs. Rossi said. Although, I suspect that he might already know. Lila returned to her bedroom, pulling out her phone while walking and typing. Inside, she flopped onto her bed and hit send. Lila, guys, do y'all have any updates? Guitar King. No, Jalika hasn't said anything new lately. Alia probably told her what happened and she's being very careful this time round. Ice Dragon. No, but I heard about all the ladybug and chat noir clothing at your school. Adrian, you know anything about that? Catboy. Yeah, I was asking questions all afternoon. Turns out, Chloe had asked for them to be kept in the art room. They added all kinds of heavy security. There's a metal door which requires a password to get in and a card to get out. Lila, really? Who has the password and cards? Catboy, not entirely sure, but from what I'm hearing, it seems like Chloe's mom would have one and Marinette might have another copy. Guitar King, really? Guitar King, are you sure? Ice Dragon, Marinette looks like the type of girl to lose things. Are you sure someone would trust her with a key to something so important? Catboy, I wouldn't judge a book by its cover, Kagami. I know that Marinette might look clumsy and inept, but she's quite sharp. If it's something really important, she'll be sure to hang on to it. Lila, so, it seems that Marinette hasn't let go of her plans yet. Catboy, but it also means Marinette's job just became a lot harder. The art room is going to be surrounded by cameras and protected with an alarm system. I think it's likely she might give her. Marinette wouldn't sacrifice herself to get rid of you. Guitar King, what you're saying makes sense, ads, but I'm getting a bad feeling. Ice Dragon, I agree. If Marinette was the type to give up that easily, we wouldn't be sitting around, texting about this mess right now. Something is off. For some reason, I feel like the extra security only tips the scales in Marinette's favor. Catboy, literally, how though? Lila bit her lip. Should she tell them? That Marinette was Ladybug, that Marinette not only have a miraculous with the ability to fool anyone, but another miraculous with the ability to generate any power she wanted? The ability to short-circuit alarm and camera systems, for example? No. They wouldn't believe her and Lila shouldn't show her cards too soon anyway. Her friends will start asking all sorts of questions about how she found out, how she knew, and Lila's answers will only get more uncomfortable from there. Lila, Adrian, my mom just told me something really weird. Apparently I'm joining you down the catwalk for the fashion show. Catboy, I was just going to ask you about that. Ice Dragon. What? You're modeling? Catboy, I literally just found out. Natalie came in and told me. Are you okay with it? I know you don't like being the center of attention. Guitar King, you'll be a great model, Lila. Lila, yeah, I'm okay with it. It might be fun. Maybe even more fun if Kagami and Luca join in as well. Catboy, you guys cool with that? Guitar King, hell yeah. Put me down. Ice Dragon, it'll be a valuable learning experience. I've never done anything related to fashion before. I'll ask my mother and see. Catboy, great. I'll go ask my father right now. Lila, awesome. Let me know how it turns out. I have to go now. Lila, bye. Guitar King, bye. Ice Dragon, farewell, my friends. Catboy, see you next time, Lily. /. Lila sighed, placing her phone on her bedside table as she turned around to rest on her back. Fingers laced over her stomach, staring up at the ceiling. She hoped that everything will go well. With her friends close by and plenty of witnesses around, nothing bad should happen. Thanks for testing out the cameras and alarm, Max. Marinette exclaimed happily. On Alya's desktop monitor, Max gave a thumbs up through the video call. No problem. You just want to keep it like that until next Sunday, right? Max asked. Marinette nodded. Yeah. No problemo, Max said, tapping at something off-screen. No biggie for me, that is. You're a lifesaver, Alya said, sitting at her desk chair next to Marinette while Marinette leaned over the camera. All in a day's work. Max disconnected the call and Marinette turned to Alya as the screen flashed gray. Sunday night? Alya said. Sunday night, Marinette confirmed, leaning against the edge of Alya's seat. Why did you want him to mess with the cameras? Alya asked. Only you and Mrs. Bourgeois have the passwords. I know, but I asked them to pass it on to Adrien as well, Marinette said. And he'll definitely share it with Lila. Lila will then have a gateway to breaking into the art room. So, by making Max test the cameras, the school will think there's something wrong with them, Alya said. And they'll keep sending someone over to fix them. The camera would be turned off, giving you an opportunity to conduct your work undetected. And with your illusions by wielding the miraculous of the fox, no one will be any the wiser. Marinette said happily. But by Monday morning when they try to get the clothing, Lila will be expelled. Alya said excitedly. She'll leave our lives and Adrien will go back to his sweet, caring, loving self. Alya suddenly looked unsure. But what if an Akuma happens? Ladybug can't be present then. Don't worry about it, Marinette said impatiently. We can't control when an Akuma appears. Let's not get into a tizzy about dreadful what-ifs. If one does come, I'll deal with it in a jiffy, or Chat Noir can keep it busy until the plan is finished. Let's just focus on what we can do. Alya nodded. You're right, she said. I'm getting ahead of myself. Keep your head in the game, Marinette commanded. Every last step is critical. Let's run through this one last time, Alya said. So, on Sunday night, Max will disrupt the cameras and alarms, and then you'll break in, destroy the clothes, and leave. I'll come in and create an illusion so no one will think anything is wrong. But we still need something that'll damn Lila to the crime scene. I know the perfect item, Marinette said. Lila never goes anywhere without. I'll just have to take her keychain. I'm still not sure, Alya said. What if Lila doesn't show up? What if she's with her mother the entire time or something, and everything will just think that it's a coincidence that her keychain is there? Oh, don't worry, Marinette said, smiling. I have the perfect plan for that too, Alya. Don't you worry. Marinette, Alya asked, disturbed by Marinette's maniac expression. Do you think we might be going too far? Instantly, Marinette's face melted into a frown. What do you mean? I mean, Alya said. Isn't this overkill? Nothing is overkill. Marinette snapped. I mean, I don't want to go this far either, but it's the only way to get Adrien back. Don't you want him back? Of course I do, but Alya hesitated, thinking, you're right. It is the only way to get him back. Then shuttled all doubts from your mind, Marinette commanded. Just focus on the plan. When Wednesday morning starts, Lila's day will be numbered. Mississippi Trickers? Lila turned to see two small female figures with instruments in their hands staring up at her. We have everything set for the human fashion show, one said. And Lucius is willing to take your deal, the other chimed. Lila smiled. Perfect. She picked up her fox mask and walked out of the room. Lady Kokoro, she called. We have everything set and ready. Kokoro turned from where she was browsing a bookshelf. Wonderful, she exclaimed. She turned back around and selected a book, opening it. Amber will be pleased to learn that Tomo's soul has now expired its stay on Earth. Oh, Lila exclaimed. Do you think she'll extend her deal? She doesn't have a choice unless that boy fulfills his end of the bargain. We can be sure of that, Lila boasted. He took my deal after all. Wonderful, Lila, Kokoro laughed. How busy you are. You'll have your wish soon enough. Kokora left the room. Mississippi Trickers, will you make us with you when you're reborn? Lila looked down at the small female figures still lingering loyally by her side. She smiled. I can't lie, she said. You know it all depends on Amber. But I like you too, I'll ask and see. No promises, though. The small female figures nodded and left the room. Lila Ross, Lila mused to herself. I can't wait to see you in person. She closed the door.